Are you thinking about getting your pilot's license and you want to make the right decisions? Or are you a student pilot trying to make sure you don't burn through a bunch of money as you get your private pilot's license? If so, this is the video that you cannot miss. Here on ENTP Life, we mostly talk about real estate, business, and anything else that I'm interested in. And for those of you who already are subscribers and this is not your first time landing on my channel, you know that I'm a private pilot. Now, I started training to become a private pilot back in 2017. And I wish that I went out there and I did some research to make sure that I don't make some of the following mistakes that cost me thousands of dollars in additional flight training that I didn't have to make. Now, if this is the type of content that you are going to be interested in, and it is your first time landing here on ENTP Life, don't forget to hit that subscription button and turn the notification bell on, like the video, and let me know in the comment section below what sort of things in aviation would you like me to cover. Now, I'm going to start with what I believe to have been my biggest mistake. The biggest mistake that I made in my flight training was actually going out and buying my own plane in the middle of my flight training, thinking that I was going to save money, without ever confirming with my flight school if they would train me in my own plane. You see, what ended up happening was that I had bought a block of 40 hours of flight time, and that's the minimum amount of hours that you need to actually sit for your private pilot's exam. And when it was time for me to renew and buy more hours, I thought, why not just buy my own plane, because I planned on buying a plane anyway, and that way I could train in my plane, get used to it, and start using that plane instead of paying the school's rental fees. Now, that was a stupid mistake. At the end of the day, a flight school is a business, and where they make the most of their money is actually on renting the aircraft. They only make a small spread above what they pay the instructors. They might be charging you, at least in New York, they were charging about $50 an hour per instructor hour, okay? And then they were charging anywhere from $125 to $175 per an hour for the aircraft. Just taking a look at those numbers, you can be spending anywhere from $175 to maybe $200, $225 an hour, depending on the aircraft that you're in. That gets pretty damn expensive. So I thought by having my own airplane, I could eliminate the rental cost and just be paying the instructor's rate. When I brought that idea to my flight school, they flat out just told me, no, it's a liability for us to be flying in your aircraft. That's not something that we do. And ultimately, I got frustrated with my flight school, and that led me to my next big mistake, switching flight schools. You see, my early training was in a Diamond DA-20, which is like a 2-seat aircraft, really nice trainer. And I knew that I wanted to get a low-wing aircraft, and that's why I chose that flight school in the first place, because I was like, I'm going to be buying low-wing, I want to learn in low-wing, and their trainer fleet were Diamond DA-20s. So when I bought my airplane, after those hours expired, I bought a Piper Cherokee 235. When my flight school told me that they wouldn't train me in my aircraft, I immediately started looking for flight schools that had Pipers in their fleet so that, hey, you know what, if I can't learn in my own plane, at least I could learn in a Piper and get more comfortable flying that sort of aircraft since it's going to be my aircraft. And I thought that if I transferred to a flight school just like that, they would honor all my previous training and we could pick up where we left off. And this is something that, anybody who's experienced changing flight schools will testify. Once you go into a new flight school, again, it's an opportunity for them to earn, it's an opportunity for their instructors to gain hours, and they're gonna just say, hey, I don't like the way that you're flying. Let's, work on your technique, let's work on some of the other aspects of your flying until I'm satisfied. And since I had already walked away from my first flight school and I was pissed off about it, I went to the second flight school and I was like, you know what, whatever, I don't care where we need to restart, as long as I get into the air again. At this point, I was also already certified or cleared to fly solo. So I was taking some lessons in their Pipers and also reinforcing my training in my own plane, which allowed me to fly anywhere that I was allowed to fly in my training, right? So I was able to go to Connecticut, I was able to go to Westchester and fly like in the north coast of Long Island, the south coast of Long Island. And it was a great experience for me, but I was logging that time, reinforcing my skills at my cost, which was somewhat of a benefit because I'm only paying about $100 an hour for my aircraft whenever I'm flying it. And that's, the total cost of fuel and the engine reserve, etc. The real cost for me to fly my aircraft per an hour is around $60 if I don't include all the wear and tear and the maintenance items. So I was able to get into the air more often and practice as frequently as possible to reinforce what I learned in each lesson. Now, the third mistake that I made while learning how to fly is learning how to fly in busy airspace. I learned how to fly in Long Island, New York, and Long Island is just east of JFK International Airport, which is one of the busiest in the world, and LaGuardia Airport, which is also a New York City airport, and then you have Newark Airport to the south. So that airspace is super congested. And I was learning at Republic Airport at first. And east of Republic Airport is McArthur Airport, which is another regional airport, Class C. So I'm sandwiched between 3 Class B airports, which are big and busy, and 1 Class C airport, which is kind of a lot of commercial activity. And at Republic Airport, Republic itself is a very busy Class D airport. Now, what does that mean? Well, first of all, it means that there's a lot of traffic in the air and there's a lot of traffic on the ground. So when you're trying to practice, you're gonna be sitting in the plane, once you start the engine to the plane, your time starts, your expense starts. So once you start logging that hops time, you're losing money. You might be on the floor for 30 minutes or on the ground for 30 minutes before you even take off. Then it's about 15 minutes to get to the practice area. And then you practice for maybe an hour, 45 minutes, and then you head back and you go through the same process again. So you lose a lot of time on the ground and you lose a lot of time just competing for space for you to practice your maneuvers. You might have to go further out or further away from the main practice area just to have enough space to do things like stalls and steep turns without being at risk to yourself. If I had the choice to take my flight instruction in a rural area, if you guys are fortunate enough to be in like low density areas, you're gonna get through your flight training a lot quicker than I did because you're gonna actually be flying more often and you're gonna have less hazards to be looking out for. The benefit to that is I at least got used to flying with flight following and in heavy space so that when it was time for me to start doing my cross countries and flying into much busier places, or even places that were considered to be busy, it wasn't as fearful because I was already flying in and out of JFK's airspace and doing flight over water, and it's just like, this is not a factor. I'm not that afraid of this environment. I have training in some of the most stressful environments, so that was kind of a positive of that. But if you're looking at trying to save time, save money, and get your private pilot's license as quickly as possible, you might want to do so in a not so busy airspace. And another common or top mistake that I think you guys should avoid if you're going to be getting your private pilot's license is working with instructors that are on the airline track. Now, I don't mean to say this, in a negative way because, my flight instructors might be watching this and they did a great job training me. But one issue with instructors who are on their track to their airlines is that they may get their airline job or hit their airline hours in the middle of your training, which means that you have to start training with someone else. And even within the same flight school, that new instructor is going to want to train you the way that they perceive flying to be. So if your instructor gave you a certain technique on how to deal with steep turns or how to land or how to approach your landings, and your new instructor doesn't like it, he's gonna reteach you in his way and he's not gonna let you get past that module until he's satisfied with your way of flying. You see, flying is very subjective. So when you're going from one instructor to the next, you're gonna lose time. One instructor who feels that you're ready to sit for your check ride may have signed off on your check ride. Meanwhile, another instructor could say you're absolutely not ready and put you through another 40 hours of training until he feels satisfied that you've learned enough. So the best way to avoid this mistake is maybe go to a flight school where the instructors are actually the owners, okay? It might be a smaller flight school, and that's all good because you're gonna get more focused attention and they're gonna teach you in a way that they really value the outcome, right? There's gonna be flying clubs that have instructors, and there's gonna be really small flight schools or just an instructor who owns his own plane who could work with you one-on-one. The only downside to that is that they have less aircraft and their schedule might be too busy to accommodate you, but those are questions that you should be asking. Hey, are you on an airline track? Do you train exclusively? How often do you train? How many hours per day? How many students are you training concurrently? Can I see your training schedule to see how many open slots you have? These are all really good questions that I wish I had in mind when I started. Me, I was just eager to get in there. Like I said, I went out, I bought 40 hours of time in one shot, and I started flying 2 to 3 times a week with the idea that I was gonna buy a plane. I never asked questions, I just went for it. That's my own flaw as an ENTP. I'm not that cautious. I just kind of look at what needs to get done and I do it. And in this scenario, it ended up costing me about $9,000 and 60 hours of flight time that I shouldn't have logged. Yeah, most people get their private pilot's license in around 60 to 70 hours. I got mine in almost 120 because I switched flight schools and I went through all these mistakes, and it ended up costing me so much more than it should. I think like the national average is between $8,000 and $12,000. I was well over $20,000 by the time I was done with my instruction. So hopefully you've learned from a pilot's mistakes, and you've learned what mistakes not to make when it's time for you to get your private pilot's license. Now, I don't mean this to discourage anybody from flying. I love flying. I actually want everybody out there to go out there and become pilots, because it's really a cool skill set to have. You could take short vacations. You could even fly around the world if you wanted to. That's one of my own goals, is to do, a world rounder. But it's one of those things that is just incredible. Even if you just took a few lessons, it would be helpful for you to understand how a plane flies, so that the next time that you're on a commercial airliner and it's getting bounced around, you know what's going on, and you can rest assured that you're in a safe situation. Thank you again for joining me here at ENTP Life. If this is content that you would enjoy, make sure you subscribe. Don't forget to like, and leave your questions in the comment section below. I'm going to be doing a video that is going to be highlighting how I think you should go about getting your private pilot's license the cheapest and most efficient way possible. Like if I had to do it all over again, this is how I would do it. So just stay tuned and look out for that video. If it's something that you'd like to see, make sure you subscribe, you turn your notification bell on so that you don't miss it when I put it out. Thank you again. Take care.